All right. Hello, guys, and welcome back to another review by me, yours truly, Luca. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Doom, specifically Doom Eternal, which is the sequel to the first Doom remake, which was creatively titled Doom 2016, I believe. And if you're not familiar, all these games are, or all the Doom games that have been coming out recently, I say all that as if there's a lot, there's only two, this being one of them. They are a recreation or more of a re-inspiration of the original Doom classics, which were arcade-style shooters made way back in the day. I think the first one was made in the 80s. The new games follow roughly the same story, that you're a Doom Marine that has either been kidnapped or you've been sent to Mars and then suddenly found out that there's all of these demons inhabiting Mars, and it's your job to basically kill these demons in order to survive and get back. And throughout Doom and Doom Eternal, this story is expanded on, and you can kind of dive into it as much as you want. But yeah, before I get into all of that, here's some gameplay. Here's the intro. Yeah, just roll it. Okay, so Doom. As always, I'm going to begin with the positives. The number one thing in Doom to discuss immediately, if we're talking about positives, is the difference that it has in gameplay and style, as opposed to all the other sort of AAA first-person shooter style games. If we look at the other giants in the industry, you have games like Call of Duty, Battlefield. I mean, Borderlands comes to mind, but even that's a bit more creative. But the way Doom differs is the fast-paced approach they take to combat. There's no sitting around waiting, because if you stay in one place for longer than 2 seconds, you will die. There's no way around it. The way to survive in Doom is to constantly be moving, jumping, using all different weapons you have available to you at the time, and staying fluid and staying in the action, which does a great job, or it's more of a side effect of that, is that you are just so enthralled in what's going on. And first of all, you have the first task that I talked about, which is running around, keeping on your toes, moving so you don't die, which already gets you engaged. Then they add a second layer on top of that, which is to give you an array of 6 to 10 weapons or so, and each one does different things and damages different enemies in different ways. So when you see certain enemy types, you have to think, okay, that enemy, I need to switch to that gun and hit that part of them to disable that part of them. And also, when you have the sea of enemies in front of you, you create kind of a mental map of where they are in the area that you're fighting in, and you plan which way you're going to move around the map, because you know which enemies are where. So you pull out that weapon at that time and kill them as you go. And it's just a really interesting, engaging method of doing combat. Hang on a second. My camera just shut off. Oh, it died. All right, so where was I? Thank you. Okay, brilliant. All right, cool. So I'm back. Hello again. Let me just sort out this camera. Yeah, that's an okay angle. I'm happy with that. All right, brilliant, cool, excellent. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the combat style. Makes for a really engaging game, a really engaging experience, and I appreciate I guess it's almost a risk, because as a game developer, especially for the original Doom, you don't know what's going to work in the market, you don't know what's going to sell, and you have so many fans, like old fans of the original Doom, that you might make angry and piss off. So you got to get that right, and then also appeal to such a new market of consumers. So I really appreciate the risk, and when it pays off as well as it has, it's just a recipe for success. So much fun. I'll get into more about what I think in the negatives on that, because I want to touch on it in there. But we'll speak about that later. The second thing to mention, which the other biggest positive of it, is the satisfying nature of the game. One of the biggest parts of the combat is the sort of system they have called glory kill, and it's basically when you get an enemy down to low enough health, their entire sort of character model will start flashing yellow or like gold and blue, and that means you can just go up to them, press in the R3 button, and you perform like a little animation where you just glory kill them, and this plays into, and that on its own, is very, very satisfying, and it never gets boring for some reason because you're doing it to so many different kinds of enemies, which constantly keeps it new and refreshing. And when the new harder enemy gets introduced, the sort of one thing you're looking forward to, it's a really satisfying way of killing bosses and killing new enemies, because you've spent all this time fighting them, probably died 100 times to them, and you finally get to the point where they're flashing, you press R3, and you get 5 or 6 seconds where you get to watch this animation of them, of you taking them down, and I'll tell you what, nothing really rivals that feeling in in gaming, because you need to go and experience it for yourself, is all I'm gonna say. And then this is again just commenting more on how much I love the design of this game, but I believe it's a different aspect to just the combat itself, so I want to speak about that obviously first, and it's with how it's designed, along with how the enemies are placed. You also, depending on how you kill an enemy, depends on what they drop. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's roughly like this. You have a chainsaw, right? And you can use that to kill like smaller enemies, or you can pick up fuel for it. And if you pick up like 3 pieces of fuel for the chainsaw, then you can use it on a big enemy. But it doesn't matter what. If you kill with the chainsaw, it's like the enemy will drop ammo. If you glory kill, the enemy will drop health. And in the Doom Eternal, if you kill with you have like a flamethrower. If you kill enemies while they're on fire or damage them, then they drop armor. So depending on what you need at that point, you obviously should kill in the style that benefits you the most. And so all of these things that I've just described come together to make Doom a brutally satisfying balancing act that you just constantly battling against the odds, trying to keep everything balanced. The way I describe it is like spinning plates, on sticks, and you're trying to keep them all balanced. And it's like actually pulling that off, but in a fun way, where you're playing a video game and killing demons instead of spinning plates on a stick, I guess. Okay, so that's all the great stuff out the way, because, again, Doom Eternal is an excellent game, if you can't tell from my tone of voice. But there's a couple negatives that I would like to comment on. The first being the game's difficulty. This is more related to the original Doom and me being bad at video games, but I still want to talk about it. The original Doom I played on the hardest difficulty, which was like Ultra Nightmare or something, and that it was really challenging, but it was like the correct amount of challenging where every time I'd go back I'd learn something new and it would be tough, but when I finally beat that area or that level, I'd feel really rewarded and satisfied. Whereas the differences with this Doom is that that's very different, and there's a reason why, but first of all I want to let you know that it's different, because in this Doom, the way the maps are structured and such makes it a lot harder and a lot less entry level. And I'll explain why. So for the original Doom, first of all I want to say, I wouldn't say that this game is not entry level, or what am I talking about? I think you should play the original Doom before you play, not the original Doom, the PS4 original Doom, before you play this one, and there's a very specific reason for that. And it's not the story. You can start this game, look up a 10-minute video of the original Doom story if you really care, but it's pretty self-explanatory. The actual reason why I wouldn't recommend starting with this one and starting with just Doom is because the way you're introduced to the aspects of the game in Doom is much more handheld. And for a game like Doom... Oh.
Back.
Yeah, you're right. How you doing? So for a game like Doom, handheld is obviously quite a big term to use because it's very punishing. So there's only a certain level of hand holding that you can actually get. But there is a certain essence of it there, in the sense that you start with the pistol, right, in the first Doom, and you fight lower tier enemies, work out how they use the pistol, kind of work out how the controls work, how actually, controlling the Doom Marine feels, and then you get the machine gun and then the shotgun in different areas, and you slowly progress and get the weapons, right? And each area, first of all, you have the pistol. You might be your first time with a Doom game, and you have a pistol and easy enemies in a very concise space. So you're just running around. You're realizing, okay, using the area and the space around me, that's how I succeed in this game. And be accurate shots on certain critical points on enemies. That's how I progress, and that's the fun and correct way to do this. And then you get a new weapon, the area is a bit bigger, a bit harder enemies, you die a few times and you work it out, and then by the time you're at the end of the game, 20 hours in, you're very good. You died a lot of times and you've learned a lot. Whereas with Doom Eternal, it just drops you in it. No spoilers, but the first game is pretty concise in where it takes place. It's all kind of indoors, well, most of it. Again, no spoilers. Whereas this game is much more open world on different planets and different places. And that has its benefits because you can fight. Well, the game developers had much more fun making maps and different places because they had a lot more freedom with what the scenery and the atmosphere could be like. But the downside to that is, which I believe they could have counteracted, is that they drop you in a pretty open world, and you already have, a machine gun. I don't think you have a pistol in this one. So you have your machine gun, your shotgun, and I think another weapon. I think maybe the rocket launcher. I'm not sure. And it's like you have all these weapons, and if it's your first time, and you don't know how to play a Doom game, you've only been exposed to COD and stuff like that, you just won't get that you have to use the space to your advantage or movement to your advantage, as I described before. Whereas, so that creates the issue of, that's why I would say playing the original Doom first is just a far superior idea, because you get introduced to these mechanics in a much more structured manner. And the only reason I say this is because it just makes for a more fun and rewarding game experience. And then when you come into Doom with all these skills, or in Doom Eternal with all these skills, you just feel a lot better, and you are just skillfully and tactically better at the game. So for me, I played Doom Eternal, towards the end of last year, finished it, and because I haven't played in such a long time, I'm not as sharp with how I was when I was defeating the final boss of Doom. So I come back to it not as good, and you have to relearn all this stuff, but in like a way too pressured environment. I wish Doom Eternal, for the sake of new players, and because a lot of people would have been picking this up off the hype of the last game, I wish they'd slowly introduced you into it. But maybe that's just a small kind of gripe that I have. I don't know. Maybe other people found it different. If you did, let me know. I don't mind. I'd love to hear. So I guess the note I'd put on that is kind of difficulty and structuring of the narrative. But again, that those two criticisms kind of pale in comparison to the type of game Doom is and how good it is, because you can easily fix those complaints by just turning the difficulty down. But if you're going to play a game like Doom, you're probably not going to want to turn the difficulty down because of how you think. You're going to want to play it on the hardest difficulty, and you're going to want to beat it and prove to yourself that you're sick. And when you're defeating the enemies, it feels better if you know that you're defeating enemies on the highest difficulty. So that's all I have to say on the goods and bads, really. Doom is just a brilliant, innovative breath of fresh air, really, in the game industry at the moment, with the mechanics and the gameplay. and well, traversal. I just absolutely love it. It's so satisfying. You could just hop on. I hop on it every now and then, play the challenge modes, and just run through them, jump around, and it's like solving a puzzle while playing an FPS game, while balancing all of this other stuff at the same time, and it just opens up for such different play styles, different ways to do the game. Different ways to play the game, and it's just brilliant. It's just a stroke of genius in game development. So overall, I would give Doom a 8.5 out of 10. Again, 5 being average, 10 being the best game in the world, and 0 being don't play this. I give Doom an 8.5 because the only negatives again are the structure, which could be argued back and forth. You could just argue. Some people may just assume that you've played the original Doom, you get how it works. But for an entry level player, or if this is just your kind of first time with a Doom game, I'd recommend going and playing the original Doom and see if that's for you. It's cheaper. But if you've played the original, again, Doom for PS4, if you've played that and you loved that, then you will absolutely love Doom Eternal. It's like the Doom PS4 on steroids. It's just phenomenal. Expanded exactly how you'd want it to be expanded. More innovative enemy design, which makes for even more different style of combat, which you'll have to go and work out for yourself when you do your own playthrough. And so yeah, that's all I have to really say about Doom Eternal, to be honest. Brilliant game, excellent combat as always. So different in the current market. The moving around the maps is lovely. The difficulty could be rebalanced slightly, and they could sort of introduce you into the different mechanics of it. Introduce you into the different weapons and the play style a bit softer. But aside from that, everything's great. Go and play it. The final boss battle is a bunch of fun. And yeah, I thought it was really cool to see something like that in a Doom game. And I'm looking forward to the next one. I believe they are making a third Doom, so can't wait for that to come out. I hope you can't wait for the review of that one. And yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye. Okay, well, my camera just died. Right, okay, cool. Great. Fine. Alright, I guess I'll just use another camera, I guess. Is there a camera? Photo booth? Does that do that? How do you use Mac?